What is up, everybody? Welcome to another Build a Mind podcast. I'm your host, Trevor, and I'm here with my co-host, Will. So today we have some really cool guests with us. We have Murphy and Derrek from Studio BTC. Studio BTC is, just another media company in the Bitcoin space, trying to empower Bitcoiners through media content creation and all that good stuff. We'll let them talk about it a little bit. But another thing that they've been doing is, running the Edmonton Meetup up in Canada, and also Murphy is involved with Bitcoin trading cards, which I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of, have seen. So, it's a cool little project that's happening. And, I'm always excited to talk to builders in the space. Like anytime Will and I have a podcast with builders, I'm just like super fired up to get started. I don't know how Will feels about it, but I love talking to builders in the space, no matter what it is.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's inspiring. It's great. It's cool to see what everybody's up to. And yeah, it's like a great way to orange pill people. They don't realize often they think Bitcoin is just this thing people invest in. They don't realize how much of an industry it truly is. And so it's great to talk to people who can open others' eyes to what's going on in the space.
Yeah, it's Bitcoin touches every industry, and as a meetup organizer, as a media content creation company, like Bitcoin plays a significant role in their lives as well. So I'm excited to talk to them about it. I think it'll be a really good episode for our viewers today.
Me too.
All right. Yeah, let's get to it. Real quick. I'm gonna do an ad read. All right, guys, this rip is brought to you by the Mastermind Club, which is the best way to master the ropes and get a foothold in the world of Bitcoin mining. Join a supportive community of like-minded individuals who meet weekly to share insights, exchange ideas, and provide mutual encouragement on an exhilarating journey of crypto mining. Led by seasoned pros and avid Bitcoiners, our group sessions offer a space to brainstorm innovative strategies and stay motivated towards your mining goals. As a member, you'll gain access to exclusive monthly deep dives, sessions, jumping into technical topics such as heat management, site optimizations, and the intricacies of site development. So much more will be also involved in that as well. You'll acquire the knowledge and the skills needed to navigate the complexities of mining operations with confidence and ease. What sets us apart, in addition to our value additive group dynamics, members enjoy personalized one-on-one sessions with Scott's team, industry veterans, ready to offer tailored guidance and support. Plus, you'll get the opportunity to connect with Scott Offered directly. You'll gain privileged access to pre-sales and minimum order quantities from Scott's Crypto Mining. So secure your place today in the ever-changing world of cryptocurrency with insider opportunities reserved exclusively for our members. So I'll make sure that everything is in the show notes. And actually, I've made it super easy on our screen here. You can just scan the QR code right there, and you'll be able to go to the website. But it'll also be in the show notes for you guys. All right, we're back. Let's get right into it, Rabble. Boom. Murphy, Derrek, welcome to the Build a Mind podcast. Thanks for being here today, guys.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
Hey. Yeah. So first thing I want to start off with, I want you guys to kind of just talk about what your experience has been like at the Edmonton meetups that you guys, volunteer your time to be there for. I know that, as builders, as entrepreneurs, you probably don't have a whole lot of time to spare to give towards, events and things like this. So what are the reasons why you dedicate your time and your energy and your effort into an Edmonton meetup? I think I can understand. I think I know why, but I want the viewers to kind of hear it from you guys.
Yeah, no, it's great running a meetup. Basically, whenever you're in a new city, there'll be an immediate community that you can connect with. And you're right, it does take a lot of time away from other projects and things, but it's all for the greater cause. And Bitcoin's helping the world, I guess, in so many different facets and ways.
Yeah.
And then Derrek here, he has a space that we've been hosting a lot of the meetups at. And also a solid Bitcoiner. And
we have a slightly different lineage though, because like I was, you were been out in Vancouver for quite some time, and then I was in Edmonton, and like Bitcoin is one of those things where it's there's only so many people in your hometown that are maybe using it. Edmonton's not a huge metropolis by any means, but there's a handful of us scrappy coders and a few just like normie Bitcoiners that aren't so technical. And so there was sort of a loose group here for like many years. And our mutual friend Jarrett actually kind of spearheaded a lot of that. And Jarrett's cool because he's one of these. He's actually a Bitcoiner who's had some code like merged into Bitcoin Master. So I am a coder as well. I haven't had any of my commits like pulled into the master branch of Bitcoin, but our buddy Jarrett has. I think there was only one commit, or one fork merge, but yeah, he did a great job. And then so we kind of just like took it over. Bitcoin Well here in Edmonton also had been running it for a while. And they also provided a great kind of space for us, like Edmonton sort of like scrappy coders and random Bitcoin dudes to just all connect for a while. And yeah, so on to the next phase.
Yeah. I love, oh, go ahead, Will. Sorry, my bad.
No, I'm just curious, like, you guys are certainly active in meetups and doing a lot to support the community, but a lot of people kind of once they find Bitcoin, they find their way to attending a meetup, becoming a member of a meetup, or even starting to organize a meetup. And that's kind of like their first way that they contribute to the Bitcoin community. Were you guys, was that true of you guys, or did you guys start out as coders and kind of, back in the wings somewhere doing work on Bitcoin or various assets before your foray into meetups, or how did that go?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I guess where to start. So during COVID, the world was shut down. I had a lot of time. I had held some Bitcoin from years previous, but never looked into it at all. And then as I went further and further down the rabbit hole during COVID, I saw that there was a Vancouver Bitcoin meetup. BTC Van was the one, so that's like the mainstream kind of meetup out there, and started meeting Bitcoiners. There was also a BitDevs based in Vancouver. I got kind of involved with them. I had not done any media production stuff for a few years because I was working in film, so part of a bigger machine, if you will. But at BitDevs, they were wondering like if anybody had the ability to post a bunch of these videos and talks that they had been recording. So I got involved with the organizing committee for BitDevs, the Vancouver Bitcoin group. And only because of Bitcoin and stuff, I brushed off my rusty skills and started volunteering my time helping them with media production stuff, but then moved from Vancouver away because cost of living was getting ridiculous, of course, which Bitcoin helps fix to some degree. And then took over the Edmonton chapter, if you will, because I had some of that experience. I was doing just the media production over there, but now in Edmonton, myself, Derrek, and we have another fella named Mike. The three of us kind of run the meetups here, and there's no media aspect to it, which is just fine, because it's all about building the community and outreach, I guess. So
that was going to be my next question. I was wondering if the media production and the Edmonton meetup kind of go hand in hand and help grow the influence of each other, but I guess that's not.
Yeah, I try not to. I guess pump my own bags, if you will. Yeah. So there is some overlap sometimes, but not much. The focus is definitely on building the community.
Okay, so what are some of the ways that you kind of reach out to possible Bitcoiners, no corners, things like that? How are you growing the Edmonton meetup?
So luckily, when I stepped in, there was already a decent community. Like there's like 1,100 members, something like that, on the meetup page. So that kind of helped because it was already built over the last few years. Because I think I might be mistaken, but the Edmonton meetup chapter or meetup started in 2012, 2013, something like that. So it's somewhere in the top 2 or 3 oldest meetups in Canada.
That was when Jarrett was rolling it.
Yeah. And then, it's been great, I guess.
And then
Yeah,
just to clarify, I wanted to highlight the my side of the lineage a bit because again, it's like those early roots and like how do you find a meetup when Bitcoin was like, because like I don't know, I consider myself OG because I was mining. What was that first mining pool? Mining.cz. Whatever.
Oh man, I wouldn't even be able to tell you that.
The first mining pool, and then like I had a Vault of Satoshi account. I think I was going back and forth with those. But anyways, like when you're just reading and learning about Bitcoin as it's kind of taking off from nothing into something, and then like there was no Bitcoin meetup back in the day. There was nothing, right? So eventually though, like meetup.com kind of had this like convergence with the popularity of Bitcoin in the early days where like again it would have been like 2012 or 13, like meetup.com was becoming a thing, and so I was going to like coding conference like meetups here or there, and then of course naturally you just kind of spot the Bitcoin meetup that's happening in your local community. And so that was really back in the early days, that was really the only way to meet people in meet space other than checking like Hacker News or bitcointalk.org. Like those were the only ways to like talk to other people about Bitcoin and stuff. Like I had lots of questions. One of my questions was like, as a Canadian, like how do I buy Bitcoin? Because it was back in like 2012. So the only way to actually acquire Bitcoin was like to mine it. And so you could do like pool mining on that original pool that I was mentioning there. But yeah, and then eventually met the OG Edmonton founder here, Jarrett. We will have to like post a link in the show notes for him since just out of cred, but yeah,
definitely get people in connection with him. So I'm curious, I've never been to a meetup. I've been to some conferences. That's where I've met a lot of Bitcoiners, and I like what you're talking about. I agree with what you're talking about. That getting out there, going to meetups, going to conferences, going to these places where other Bitcoiners are, it really helps boost your self-esteem, your ego, I guess you could say. Because like before I met other Bitcoiners, I was the crazy one, and I'm like, I know there's got to be other crazy people out there. So I'm curious, with a group that size now, what kind of crazy Bitcoiners are you seeing in your Edmonton group?
Well, definitely this guy is one of them. But
I think to be a Bitcoiner though, do you have to have lots of Bitcoin? Because things have been up and down over the years. So
I would say Bitcoin is a state of a Bitcoiner is a state of mind unless the height of your stack.
So there's no specific threshold. Like I don't have to have like 10 BTC to be a Bitcoiner.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. There's definitely a wide array of folks that come to these meetups. Like a couple months ago, there was this lady who had come and she was involved in a fraud scam or fraud that somehow involved Bitcoin and stuff. Our other co-host, Mike, has recently helped her to some degree.
Sounds like she still lost a lot of money.
Yeah,
but he mitigated things.
But
I got on the right track.
And she hasn't given up on Bitcoin. So I mean,
she paid him a bunch for helping him out. Like it was totally a donation, and he didn't ask, but like it was pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's almost and I hate to say this, you know, because people shouldn't be getting scammed, but because it is such a decentralized network, so there's so many different people, you know, you get people from all different walks of life and some people with not so good intentions, but it's
And to be
almost like
totally fair, this was an Ethereum scam anyway. So like
it wasn't even Bitcoin. Yeah,
Well,
yeah, but that's like almost a rite of passage for a true Bitcoiner to realize why we need
Yeah.
money that we have control over, and why you shouldn't trust anyone. You should always verify who you're talking to and what you're doing and why you're doing it. You know, those kinds of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you know,
So I'm really surprised. Sorry to interrupt. You haven't
you're good.
you haven't actually gone to like Florence in Oregon. Is there no like you're gonna have to start the OG Bitcoin meetup there? You know, like have a monthly event.
All it takes is two to be a meetup.
Yes.
I've been talking about this for a little bit. We had Svetsky on the podcast, and he's doing this really cool thing with Satlantis and ambassadors of their different meetups in different areas. But I want to get a meetup started. I want to get one going in this town. It's just right now my time is something that I don't have a lot of, and I'm working on it. You know, getting this podcast up and off the ground has been a labor of love, to say the least. And once it kind of like starts evening out, smoothing out a little bit after Nashville, I think I'm going to start working on getting some traction, because you know I go around, I'm that crazy Bitcoiner that, you know, people talk about. They're like, oh, it's that Trevor dude, all he ever talks about is Bitcoin, you know. But I've gotten some people like interested in it. You know, I'm in construction, and so I was working on this guy's man cave, and he has 220 volt like wired up in the man cave, and I was talking to him about it. I was like, oh man, you know, like you should get into Bitcoin mining. You could totally plug one of these things in. Like they would heat this whole room for pennies on the dollar, basically. And he started thinking about it, and he's like, wait a minute, you're telling me I can get like free heat? He's like, do you know what the implications for that are for like small businesses that need heat? And I'm like, yeah, I know what the implications are, bro. Like we need to start this.
Yeah.
So I definitely see like that, what is it? There's touch points, you know, in my town. It's just, there's nobody to like really get people involved, because I'd probably be the only, and I don't want to say I am, but I think I'm the only Bitcoiner in Florence that actually knows about Bitcoin.
Yeah. If it helps, like what we've recently started doing the last 3 or so months, we have a Bitcoin and brews, which is like an informal version. So like that requires pretty much just set a date, pick a nearby coffee shop, brewery, whatever, have people come. You require zero planning other than scheduling the post. That might be an easy way. And then we do have a formal one, but that requires, definitely
and you know,
a little more planning.
Florence, not a big town. If no one else shows up, you can just drink by yourself for a while.
Yeah, pretty much. Honestly, what happened is like I tried to get traction for one already back in, I want to say April. And what happened was it was me and my father-in-law sitting in a coffee shop with a Bitcoin sign and everybody giving us weird looks. And I was like, I don't know about this. I feel a little uncomfortable here.
You know, you don't need a sign, because like everybody knows it's like, oh, this scraggly bunch is the Bitcoiners. I found my people. So
yeah,
you would be fine without one.
Yeah, I
Murphy,
think
this washer and dryer, like you've got 240 volts down here as well.
I should get an S19 or something.
Yeah, well, he's wasting his 240 outlet on the washer and dryer. Like I don't understand, man. Like,
too loud.
That's funny. So let's get into the mining talk a little bit. So
okay.
What is your guys' experience with Bitcoin mining, and you know what got you to start thinking about it?
Well, definitely getting into Bitcoin is something that made me want to look into it, I guess, initially. So I was at a meetup out in Vancouver. There was this guy, he had, for some reason, a bunch of miners. He was like, who wants a miner? Pulls out these S9s by the tails. And that was my first foray into it. Just some random guy who was getting rid of a bunch of S9s. So that, and of course, when you're at a certain point in your Bitcoin journey, and especially when it's an S9 and you know you can run it on 120 volt power, so you don't need anything special or fancy, at least for an S9 or Nerd Miner and some other exceptions. But it opened my eyes to the whole process, because in going through the steps of installing brains, I think it was Slush Pool at the time, and going through all those steps, connecting it to a pool, like that helped my understanding even more of the whole mining aspect, because that's like definitely an entirely different beast. Like I'm still no expert or anything, but
It's a rabbit hole within a rabbit hole.
I've learned a lot, and now I have a couple S9s here in my basement and a Nerd Miner, providing heat. I mean, the Nerd Miner.
Yeah, I don't know what it's really doing.
I'm sure that's providing no heat, but
Yeah.
the other two S9s, I have them ramped down just so I don't blow a circuit because of other stuff on the circuit. So I have them both set to, I think, 650 watts.
Can you ramp them up a bit? It's
You
a little chilly.
It'll kick in and would probably ruin the sound.
Oh, right. Yeah,
But-
we're doing a podcast.
Those things are loud, man. I'll tell you what, when I brought my first S9 home,
Yeah.
the wife was not happy with me.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Similar thing. So since we were living in a condo at the time,
This was in Vancouver.
it definitely had to stay outside because of the noise level. So it was on the balcony. And
Defeats the purpose of heating the house.
yeah, but when you're in like a little shoebox in the sky, the sound can be quite atrocious.
Yeah,
But-
that makes sense. So what you're using some S9s right now?
Yeah.
Are you getting into the process of building bigger? Like, what's your guys' take on it? How you guys gonna make that work?
I do have two other unused S9s that I haven't set up yet, but I don't want to blow any breakers, so that's at the moment as big as I'll go. But for now,
Yeah, that's a common occurrence for a lot of Bitcoiners is the 220 or 240 volt setups are just too hard for a lot of people to get into. That's why. So I was talking about it a little bit off camera, but you guys might be interested in this. So there's this really cool Loki board, and basically Loki is the god of mischief. And this board allows you to trick the control board on this computer here, this S19, into thinking that it has the right power supply, because the hash boards only need like 12 to 14 volt DC power. So you can actually set these up to run off of 120 volt. And they're a lot more efficient because your S9 is only about 109 joules per terahash. So while you're using it for heat, like it can save you some money, and I've had that exact experience. But it's not really it's not making you money.
No.
Yeah.
It's fun, and then it's still just a fun process to play around with.
100%. You got to get your hands dirty somewhere. Like I think the S9 is a rite of passage for any pleb miner getting into the space.
100%. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, it was really simple. Like I said, back in the day, I was on the early, the slush pool, one of the first slush pools. Just like I had my, I was a PC gamer back in the day, and had would always splurge on $300 or $400 on a high-end graphics card. So I had a couple rigs, and I was doing LAN parties and stuff. So I had computers around the house, and then when I got wind of Bitcoin, it was like, oh yeah, I'll plug this in 24/7 to crunch. I think I had already done that. There was this SETI at home. There was this space thing you could do 24/7. So I had already played with that. And then so Bitcoin mining was the same thing, but you just, I think SETI used CPU, but then Bitcoin, of course, was GPU. And you plug it into the slush pool site. And then, I only ran them for a couple weeks or something. And then years went by, and then I looked at how much those turned out in the slush pool. And I thought to myself, good God, why didn't I just keep it on all year?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a common occurrence with a lot of people. They kind of touch it a little bit and then they step away from it and they come back to it. Just like Mel in her episode, which came out today, so everybody can go and watch that with Melissa Sands. But she talks about how she got into Bitcoin in 2015. Purchased some Bitcoin. I think it was like $400 worth or something like that, and then ignored it for 4 years, 3 years. Comes back in 2017, and her Bitcoin stack was like, I think it was like well over $4,000. And she goes, all right, the hell is this? And that's something that happens. Yeah, absolutely. That number go up catches your attention. But then it's like, what else can Bitcoin do for you? Like, what are the implications of the broader space? And I'm curious to hear like what Bitcoin is. I mean, obviously you guys are running meetups. You're building this Bitcoin oriented media company. So like, what role is that playing in your guys' lives, in your business, in your state of mind, really?
Should we clarify though too? Like, we're kind of separate. We come together for the meetups, but yes. I'm a coder, like full stack software suite studio type of thing, and then Murphy's video editing and all sorts of Bitcoin jazz.
Okay, so Derrek's not working for Studio BTC.
Right. No, he's the Codejam.
Yeah, gotcha.
His, entity.
Yeah. Well, hey, if you share that with
coding,
me,
but not mining per se. But if you have some mining infrastructure and you needed like a custom software developer to come in and like put the inputs to the outputs kind of thing, then I'm your guy.
Yeah, we definitely need people like that. So make sure you share with me the link to your website or wherever people can find you, and I'll make sure that goes in the show notes. So if anybody does need a coder, they can find you and pay you in Bitcoin. Even better.
That's the primary currency I work with.
Yes, I
will quote your project in BTC.
So yeah, Murphy, go ahead and just like talk about the implications of Bitcoin in your business, in your life, and what it really means for you.
So I guess one thing for sure that it does is it makes it incredibly easy to work for other companies outside of Canada, because the payment rails on when you're using Bitcoin are pretty superior, of course, to traditional fiat. So there's like no holds. It's relatively instant. And it has allowed me, to gain and get clients who are in Europe, who are in the US, who are just different pockets of the world. And it also makes it easy to pay anybody who might be utilized, that I might utilize really easily. So it's been leaps and bounds great for that. That's it. It's been good for that. Derrek has more.
I mean, yeah, Bitcoin's great. I kind of forget what the original question was though, because he's directed it.
So I was asking. So like, what role has Bitcoin played in your life, like your business and what you're doing? Like, what are the implications of Bitcoin being implemented versus a non-Bitcoin playing role? I guess is. Sorry, it wasn't a great way to ask the question.
Just like, again, for the consulting and just using money for what it should be used for, which is to get paid and to be profitable. Like, I remember the biggest sale I had ever made at the in my consulting coding career was in Bitcoin, and I was living in Japan. I took a year or two to go spend and live around Tokyo and Osaka for a while, like hopping cafes. And there was something magical about living completely isolated in a different part of the world at about midnight that in Tokyo time, and getting a fat Bitcoin payment. I think it was about 10 Bitcoin at the time. And I spent all of it, but just getting that, and I went to a konbini and kind of celebrated with a little juice box, and I was like, man, this is so cool. I just we just did an international transaction for a wad of cash that like would have been so annoying to do with banks, because I would have been sweating bricks like, are they going to freeze the money? And then, you know, how long is the hold going to be on my account? Like, I don't have a direct line to the banker who's ever going to like manage this transaction and stuff. And man, I was coding like almost all day. Like, I just wanted to get paid. And so that's the beauty of Bitcoin. My client was able to just, he was not in Japan, and, you know, didn't completely different time zone. And he just sent like a $10 test. And then after that, it was the big wad came, and it was great. So that's what it's all about, right? And, you know, today people, you look at the activity on the mempool.space, like, people are doing that with 100 Bitcoins, you know, like the amount of money you can move with basically snapping your fingers and then waiting a couple minutes is really incredible. And it's hard for people to grasp like the implications of that, because we really don't need centralized banking at all. And it just gets in the way of innovation and efficiency, really, right?
Well, what you're touching on is this ability to send peer-to-peer payments, you know, being able to connect with somebody like yourselves. You guys are in Edmonton, and now you're able to, you know, do business with clients who are all the way around on the other side of the world. And there's no more friction between that. All of a sudden, you have the ability to do work for somebody and get paid in Bitcoin instantaneously, by the way. And you don't have to go through a financial regulator. You don't have to ask the central bank to clear that process. You don't have to wait for somebody to give you the A-OK to do that. You literally set up a Bitcoin wallet, you create a transaction ID, and you send it over. And as soon as they pay for it, boom, done. You're ready to go. You know, I think that those implications, you know, outside of the mining side of things, which I'm really into the Bitcoin mining, but Bitcoin itself allows for businesses like yours, you know, both of you, to expand your network and really bring in more than what you otherwise could have. Because I'm not sure about you, but, you know, business relationships are very difficult to come by. And when your pool of people to do business with is so small, like there, you know, you might only have 10% of the community that's willing to do business with you. And what's the amount of the percentage of people that it's actually going to work out? You know, maybe 10% of 10%. But if you can expand that pool to, you know, the broader world and get your services out there, you know, you widen up that the ability to make more money and make something of yourselves, your community, your business, all those things.
And there have been some great tools coming out the last few months, ZapRight in particular, like I've been using, and that is a game changer in terms of invoicing. Like, it's good. Yeah,
it's good stuff. So I want to kind of shift into Bitcoin mining. So let's just have a conversation, you know, like we're Bitcoin miners here. All of us have spent a little bit of time in Bitcoin mining. It might be very small, but let's, you know, what are your ideas behind Bitcoin mining? And you can take that however you guys want to.
Well, what do you got rolling now? You have the S9s.
Yeah, I have two S9s and then a nerd miner.
And you said like you're limited by the power, right? So like the main idea is like if you knew an electrician who could come and rig up the city municipal, you know, violate some municipality code, and, you know, get you the bandwidth that you need, like that could be an idea, right?
Yeah. Or as you said earlier, you noticed that we're sitting next to a washer and dryer. That's got a 240 plug.
It's an idea. These are the type of ideas we're having. What about you, man? Like, what do you have set up?
Well, I just want to touch on what you're talking about here. You know, what you're talking about is a problem that so many people have. Okay, you know, like the large, you know, Bitmain, MicroBT, Canaan, all these companies, they're building products now that are not pleb miner accessible. You know, you guys, you're talking, I have one 240 plug in my house. How am I supposed to use that and a dryer at the same time? It's not feasible. But there are plebs out there like Zach, like I was kind of explaining, who are allowing you to tinker, you know what I mean? And you can take something that is much more efficient. You can take this S19, which is much more efficient than this S9, and you can make it power off the exact same power source. So that opens up the ability to do a whole hell of a lot more if you want to get into it. You know, you could, okay, little story
that idea of little modular units that you might have something that's not capable for your current setup, but you can easily start running it anyway.
Exactly. You want, like, you have plenty of 120 volt plugs in your house, you know, but you only have one 220 or 240 volt plugs. So what can you do if you can just, you know, fix a machine up and make it power off of 120? And that's what Zach is doing at Unbound Networks. So I'm really interested in what he's doing. And a little like story, you know, so I actually had a conversation with somebody a couple weeks ago who is using the Nord board to power a one hash board out of an S9 or an S19. He's putting it in canola oil, and he's using that to cycle or he used it to cycle sap, so tree sap into a reverse osmosis, you know, water purification thing or whatever. I'm not exactly sure on the technology, but what he did is he basically turned 50 gallons of sap into 50 gallons or however many gallons of syrup with a Bitcoin miner off of 120 volt. You know, so those are incredible implications. And it's just, you know, he was able to turn around and sell that syrup at a Bitcoin meetup. And because it was made with Bitcoin, Bitcoiners freaked out and they bought it with Bitcoin.
Right. Yeah, so, that's awesome.
Yeah, lots of cool stuff. But you asked, go ahead.
The only, like, we've done work together with a mutual friend, Adam, out in Vancouver, who's kind of actually a catalyst for us becoming like a thing here in Edmonton together. He has a platform that he's been building, and then for a while I worked with him, and we thought about like ways to make I don't know, just engage with user base in other ways other than just providing a core wallet service that he runs called Coinos.io. Give him the nice plug there, which is pretty much the easiest, fastest way to start using Bitcoin. I'll stop. Anyways, but we played with the idea of like creating sort of like a control panel dashboard for people that they could spin up a mining server in the cloud, quote unquote, and then get kind of a cute way to manage that. And I believe that's not necessarily a unique idea. Correct me if I'm like, you might actually know a good service like that where people can just like spin up a node and then start mining. Obviously, if you're in the cloud, like you're paying someone else for server space and all that jazz. But, you know, just on the topic, like that is another way. And I just wonder about the creative solutions there on how you can basically share or, you know, connect your server into connect your own local like home-based unit into a bigger kind of pooling type system, like with small modular devices, like kind of like on your tangent here.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with any businesses or companies being created in the States like that. I'm also a very green Bitcoiner, so I don't know a lot of things. I'm sure there are people out there doing that.
Well, someone's going to take your money if you want to put a credit card in and then spend a bunch of money in that infinitum and then like get your mining, and it may or may not be legit, or there probably are legitimate ones, but it's just, I think it's not cost effective, right? Because like, why would they pass on
what I think is a great little story or a little, you know, possibility. So you've got a lot of no coiners out there. Everybody knows them. Everybody's they're all complaining about, you know, not making enough money and everything being too expensive. But as soon as you bring up Bitcoin, they kind of like turtle in their shell and they don't want to talk about it. And they're like, I don't know what that is. Like, stay away from me, you crazy person. But with what Zach was talking to me on the podcast with him, you know, what if we can decentralize the network by, let's say you're a no coiner and I come to you and I say, I can save you 50 to 100% on your electric bill. What would you say to that? How do I find out more? You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
exactly.
So
Exactly.
if I told you like, look, all I want you to do is you have this energy, you're already connected to the energy grid, you have energy in your home that you're not using. I would like to set up a Bitcoin miner in your home, or I would like to set up a part of my distributed network in your home, and I will pay you, or I'll pay your electricity bill, and for the benefit of leaving this distributed piece of my network in your home. Most people would be like, okay, where do I sign? And then all of a sudden, you know, I can take the Bitcoin from it because I paid for the equipment and I'm paying for the electricity, so I'm taking the Bitcoin. But then these people are, you know, they're going to come to me and they're going to ask, well, how does this thing make money? How are you making money off of, like, how are you able to pay for my electricity bill and put this machine in my house? Like, what are the factors at play here, the economies of scale or whatever? I'm not a business guy, so I don't know. But at the end of the day, they're going to be like, how does that happen? And then you bring up Bitcoin and they're like, okay, what is Bitcoin? And I think that right there is what gets people into it. You know what I mean? But it's people like me, people like yourselves, who just go out and start building this quote unquote decentralized network.
Yeah, that would be. That sounds like a really great idea.
I mean, if you're doing it Jehovah Witness style, door to door, I might still. You talk about the electricity bill and how you could save me money, and you want to put the. I mean, it might be cool though, like if you showed up door to door and you had, you know, by the tail an S9, and you're like, hey man, hook this baby up. Like, so maybe there's something there.
Yeah.
The only thing about talking about the economics of it, like if you're the one trying to get door-to-door sales on this type of thing, you're trying to basically get decentralized power. I think the reason why that maybe hasn't taken off at scale is because like the amount of work that takes, and then the amount you get back from all these households, and the maintenance requirements and the implications of them burning their house down or whatever. you might not. It might be better off finding a more central location of power and tapping into that. And so I think that's why a lot of like hardcore like gurus are actually not going to be targeting residential as much as they are going to be looking for that free source of power. Like we have there's an Alberta-based company actually, because like oil's big here, you know, it's the Texas of Canada. There's an innovative guy based out of Edmonton. I think he's still in Edmonton. Anyways, he you know, those like flames that shoot up
Flare sites.
Yeah, flare sites where they're burning off natural gas. He has a solution where they basically put a sea can on top of it and tap it, and it runs straight into a mining rig.
Upstream.
Yep. Yeah, I think maybe is that what it's called?
Data with Steve Barber. It
might
Alberta based.
Might be different, because I don't know the guys. I can't remember. He was at one of the early Bitcoin meetups in Edmonton. That's why I know about him. But anyways, like something like that where you have like a clear open valve, literally, of energy, is something that I think is still like kind of the Wild West to some extent. And you know, it kind of correlates into another interesting topic where it's like this whole perpetual motion machine theory. If someone's got one of those perpetual motion machines, you know, I know that it's sort of like taboo. Yeah, and it's been speculated about, oh, is it possible? Is it not? Or the guy who could run his car on water, you know? Like, if you have this, like, so-called, like, perpetual motion machine, what are the implications to Bitcoin if the power was all free, right? And I don't know if enough Bitcoiners are asking that question, right? Like, the whole rug could be pulled from under us if there was, like, one day it was announced. It's like, oh, yeah, by the way, electricity is free now. You know, what do we do then?
I don't even know what to say to that. I mean, I'm thinking about it now, and I'm like, you know, that's a scary thought. But also at the same time, would it decentralize the network completely at that point? Because I mean, at free power, almost all machines are profitable. Well, they are profitable at that point. You know, so what's that going to do? I think about, you know, you talk about the flare gas mining, and you know, segue that into building out electrical infrastructure. Okay, so maybe it's not a flare gas site, but it's an electrical grid that needs to be bigger. I mean, if we're gonna get to this world, this new green world or whatever they want to do, and everybody's running off of electric cars, we need to build out this energy grid. But there's no incentive for the energy providers to build that grid because there's nobody to come in and consume the power until Bitcoin miners came along. Because now Bitcoin miners can come in and control that or purchase that stranded energy. And the same thing with these gas mitigation sites. You know, at one point you had all these different flares that, you know, are basically just venting gas into the atmosphere and they're not doing anything with it. But you put a gen set on it and all of a sudden you're able to mine Bitcoin with that power. And you could, in theory, build an entire community around that flaring site. And Will would know more. I'm not sure if he's able to pop on with his issues right now, but Will is actually working on a flare gas site.
Oh, cool. Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
Will?
Is he with us? There it is. Maybe. Hello.
Yeah, I don't know if it's working.
Internet issues in Wisconsin today.
Oh, no.
Something like that, man. It must be in the weather. I don't know. But yeah, Will is working on a flare gas site, and it's interesting to hear from his perspective, like the different things that they're able to do and the implications for, you know, rural communities all over the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is like its own power plant, essentially. The problem is most of these are just so out there and isolated that that's
You can't connect them to the grid, so it's
yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, and kind of something that I've been thinking about is, do you guys know the company Gridless?
I've heard of it.
So what Gridless is doing is Gridless is going to, and they're not necessarily flare gas sites or anything like that, but you know, South America, Africa, these continents have abundant amounts of excess energy that's not being utilized. And the reason it's not utilized is because it's not feasible for an electricity company to come in and build out this grid in a place where there's not enough of an economy to pay for that infrastructure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what Gridless is doing is they're creating these sites that go to these stranded sources of energy, whether it's a hydro source or a geothermal source or something along those lines. And what's happening is they're building this Bitcoin energy consuming place, you know, a grid. And all of a sudden, now that there's a Bitcoin there to consume the electricity, people can come in and start building community around this. Okay. And so what we're talking here is that there are villages in Africa that have never had light, which means that from the hours of, you know, 6 p.m. to 8 a.m., there's no light, which means that, you know, the implications of that are that, you know, there's no growth in the economy because there's nobody thinking into the wee hours of the night, like, what can I do for my business? What can I grow? What can I build? But when you give them electricity, and now they can turn on a light and they can read a book at night and they can, you know, study at night. What does that mean? You know what I mean? Like, it might not be a 5-year plan, but what's going to happen to the continent of Africa 50 years from now when there's all these little villages that now have access to electricity?
Yeah, it's going to change lives. And I guess I have heard some of that. I didn't know the name Gridless was behind it necessarily, but it's going to be, safer for the communities at night, like, is one immediate benefit. Plus, of course, you know, I forget his name, but I know the global south, like, they kind of skipped over, you know, some technology. So they skipped, you know, computers, and they all have phones or landlines. They skipped over that. And now anybody with a phone, of course, as long as you have internet connection and assumably power to charge your phone, like, adoption in those kind of countries and places is going to just kick right off. And that is amazing that
those little
previous.
S9s that you're looking at in your basement right there, man, like they're changing the world. That's my belief. You know?
And incentives align.
Yeah, absolutely. I've said it a bunch of times on this show, but my personal ethos, and it's a theory that I'm working on right now, but I believe that the middle class is what built this country, built this nation, and even built yours. And I don't have any evidence to back that up, so don't cite me or quote me. But my theory is that our way of life, the middle class way of life, that modest living, build your business, do stuff for you, build for you, and output that energy into the world, has been destroyed. It's been absolutely decimated since the United States took us off the gold standard in 1971. So for 53 years, we've been attacked, we've been ostracized, we've been destroyed. Our values have been taken from us. And now we have homeless populations that are just absolutely out of control because they're being incentivized not to work. We have healthcare systems and education systems and food systems that are just rife with fraud and fiat mindedness. So what happens when all of a sudden you can start thinking long term? You can build a business that holds its value because you're not fighting 12%, 20% inflation. So basically what you're able to do is you're able to raise your personal quality of living while simultaneously reducing the cost of living. Those implications for people all the way around the world are mind-blowing when you think about it. And it's all happening because of this. What you would probably know more, Derrek. How many lines of code in the Bitcoin core?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's a multitude of 10,000 in there.
Okay. So it's a lot of lines of code, but it's code. It's all it is code. It's a protocol. It's something that we agree on together. And at the end of the day, that's changing the world.
However, if you don't code, you can't agree on what you don't know. So there is this risk always of like a sort of a new elite class. Like you shift it from bankers to coders. It's still the same setup, right? We don't. Yeah. So we have to be careful about like idolizing the code, just as we have to be careful about idolizing politicians and deities of any sort. Always be mindful of that.
Yeah, like expand upon that a little bit.
Sure.
Kind of what you're talking about.
Well, I mean, like Bitcoin is it's the future is always going to be exciting if we can move forward with the positive energy, and hopefully get rid of all the negative energy and the parasites that constantly want to leech off of our hard work. But Bitcoin is one way to do that. It's been an amazing technology. It's super innovative and totally outside the box, and exactly what is needed to counter this corrupt financial system and the whole printing of money endlessly. Like, it's about time someone set a cap. Like, we have an algorithm that's a much better solution, particularly if a bunch of smart guys can review it and acknowledge that this protocol is working as intended. That said, if we just rely on that, the same parasites will figure out their way in. And so, you're not necessarily, you need an escape velocity that I think might have to go beyond just Bitcoin as a protocol and as a technology. Like, you might need some more philosophical or deeper sort of commitment to the future and to, like, touching upon the very things you were talking about, like the prospects and the potential for our futures is really exciting. But like, we can't just make the same mistakes that we made 100 years ago and trust a centralized group of people who know what they're doing to do it. I think we have to acknowledge that there's going to have to be more responsibility at the individual level in order for us to overcome this dilemma we have with the yin yang, good and evil battle.
Absolutely. It's scary sometimes you think about it, because you talk about like those unscrupulous people who, make their way into everything. And if you're obfuscating personal responsibility and you're not verifying all of these different things, you're basically giving your future, your outcomes, your energy to somebody else, and you're trusting that they're going to do right by you. And how many of us have been screwed over by somebody they thought had their best interest at heart?
Yeah.
You know, and so I agree with you completely. I think there's something to be said that we shouldn't move fast and break things, especially when it comes to like changing the code. And I'm not a coder, so I can't tell you like what things need to be changed and what doesn't need to be changed. But I think that we should be very careful about how we go about changing things and who we trust to make those changes.
Yeah, and be careful about who you delegate your authority to, right? If you're if you're betting your life on Bitcoin, you know, you better look at who's running Bitcoin, and if you can't find that out, like maybe second guess the whole deal, because like at the end of the day, you have to be the source of the authority in order to have control in your life. And if you're just giving it away, there are plenty of people out there that will just use your energy and use it for bad and use it against you and keep you in a perpetual cycle that you might not want to be in.
Absolutely. And those people I would say aren't Bitcoiners, because, you know, you asked earlier, like what makes a Bitcoiner? I think it's
10
mind-
Bitcoin, right? Or
20?
20?
10 Bitcoin.
You have to have 100 Bitcoin to be a Bitcoiner. I'm saying it.
Well, listen.
There's a scale.
But no, like at the end of the day, I mean, what makes a Bitcoiner is, you know, I think that you don't even have to know what Bitcoin is to really quote unquote be a Bitcoiner, because it's a state of mind.
Yeah.
It's a state of mind, and it happens through that journey of Bitcoin. Like for me personally, I lived a life of frivolity, even though I didn't have the money to pay for that frivolousness. But I also wasn't thinking about the future, because I didn't think that a future could be attained. And once you get on a Bitcoin standard, once you start thinking about Bitcoin and how it plays a role in your life, you start thinking like, okay, well, I want to build a business. I want to create something, and I want to put that thing into the world and retain that value, because I now have a system that allows me to do that. Okay, what do I need to do to make sure that that system is protected throughout the long view? You know, Michael Saylor talks about Bitcoin being 1,000-year asset. Well, how do we get from here to 10 generations from here? You know, well, it's through personal responsibility. It's through taking your situation into your own hands, and instead of like giving the responsibility to someone else, it's like, okay, no, I'm responsible for these things. Now let me verify who's responsible for the other things and make sure that I can actually trust them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. It like Bitcoin has kind of similar to yourself. Like it sounds like not thinking about the future or anything like that. A few years ago, you know, got into budgeting or whatever. That kind of was a game changer itself. And then finding Bitcoin has changed my perspective. Now I have, you know, hope for the future.
Yeah, it's a certain confidence about it.
Yeah, it's
that reaffirms everything.
I'm not picking different stocks or bonds or things like that. Not getting in on the GME craze. You know, sure, maybe there's fast, easy money, but now it's just like one investment.
That's the thing. You're fast, easy money. It's not about fast, easy money. It's not about fast, because fast and easy means fast and loose. And you are risking everything for a small percentage of possibility that you're going to make it. That's not what it's about. Life, in my personal opinion, you know, my personal belief is that life is about the journey, the process of going from zero to wherever the hell you can go, you know, and Bitcoin has opened my eyes to that. It's like, if I apply my knowledge, my skill set here, where can I be 20 years from now? And can I actually make something of myself versus just not doing anything? You know, you Murphy, for example, you're building a media company that is built off of the back of Bitcoin. And what is that company going to look like? I don't know if you have kids, I don't know if you have a family, but what is that going to look like 20 years from now when you possibly have children who might want to take that over? What does that mean?
Yeah, no kids yet, but it's in the cards now.
Get on it.
So
Bitcoin babies, man.
you know, pre Bitcoin, I was definitely wrapped up in, you know, the mindset, like, what's the point? Like, it's hopeless. It's very dark and gloomy for the future, but yeah, I don't see the world that way anymore. It's still out there, and definitely have a friend group that's very much wrapped up still in that mind think, but you know, they're not there yet. It takes time. You can tell them about it and how your life is getting better and cheaper, but slowly.
Yeah. It's hard to get rid of that fiat mind virus.
It is. Like, I'm still on that journey as well. Myself, we all are, I'm sure, but it gets easier day by day.
It's true. And you know, what I try to tell people, because first and foremost, I'm gonna say this: I don't think you orange pill anyone. I don't think anyone has ever orange pilled somebody. What I think happens is you bring touch points to people, and enough touch points, somebody orange pills themselves. That's really how it goes. So, like, you know, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No.
You can get in big trouble by orange pilling people forcingly, right?
Yeah. 100%. Like you can explain it all you want, and they're not going to understand it. They're not going to pick it up until they have a reason to. And it doesn't matter that they see your life getting better. Maybe that's a touch point. But until they physically feel the experience of Bitcoin mining, or, you know, holding Bitcoin and seeing what their life get cheaper and easier, they're not going to understand. And so what I tell people is that when you're starting in Bitcoin, instead of just buying Bitcoin, learn about it. You know, like, pick up a book, you know, understand that it's not a sprint. You don't have to know everything tomorrow. You learn over time. I mean, it's taken me just under 2 years. I think I'm going on my 2-year mark here soon, but it's taken me 2 years to learn the tiny infinitesimal fraction that I know about Bitcoin. It takes time.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And luckily there's a lot of great resources out there nowadays, such as podcasts like this. And
and your media company, you know, you asking for Bitcoin when you know, produce content for somebody, like, they're going to go, well, what's Bitcoin? And why do I want to pay in Bitcoin?
Because they get the option. So there's fiat options. And then, I mean, I'll tailor it to the client, but in Zap, right, if there's fiat payments, normally add 5 or 10%. If they want to use, so they're then, you know, that'll spark a question, be like,
incentives are everything.
Wait,
incentives are everything.
Some percentage here if I use Bitcoin, and then
it grows.
It's another brilliant touch point.
Yeah, it grows over time. It's a long view thing, you know what I mean? It comes back to the time horizon. Anybody who's saying that Bitcoin is a get rich quick scheme, they're a scammer, they're a liar, they're not telling you the truth. Yeah, there used to be ways for you to make a shit ton of money off of Bitcoin, but I don't think that those days are now. I think that we're moving into a world, a Bitcoin space, where it's going to take people like us, entrepreneurs, builders, creators in the space, to build a company that is attached to Bitcoin. And that, you know, over the course of 20 years is going to get you to where you want to be. So it takes 20 years to get to that space.
Yeah, absolutely. The next generation, at least out of the Bitcoin generation, so all the kids that are growing up now, because of Bitcoiners out there starting to make, you know, families or expand their families, they are going to be so well off compared to those that aren't on the train yet. I'm sure many more will get there, especially over the next couple of years, if based on the, you know, macro.
Just make sure Dad doesn't lose the private keys.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's important.
Yeah.
It'll all be for naught.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel that, you know, as I'm going to be a new dad in September, you know.
Oh, congrats.
Congrats.
Thank you. And, you know, It's funny that you say like how Bitcoin kind of gives you that perspective. It's like before Bitcoin, I would have never even entertained the idea of having a baby. But now that I have Bitcoin, that I hold Bitcoin, that I know how to secure it, I know how to maintain it, I know how to project that energy forward into the future, I'm like, okay, my son will grow up in a world where his value is retained by him, which just means that at the end of the day, he will be judged based on what he puts into the world. And if he can build something beautiful, awesome. If he loses everything, well, that was on him. It was his responsibility to do whatever needs to be done. But Bitcoin gives them the opportunity.
Yeah.
So
Better foundation anyway, that's for sure.
Yeah.
absolutely.
It'd be cool. Like I'm just waiting for the special announcement. You know, it's like 2024 presidential election has been canceled. Everybody just use Bitcoin. There's no president anymore. We don't have to fight, and let the new prosperous generation occur. Right?
Yeah, I think about that kind of thing too, and I don't want to get too political because I am politically unadopted. I don't have a political party.
Good.
I mean, that's just fighting this scale. We're trying to change this scale.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going nowhere.
We want this.
It's what did Zach say to me just now? He said, red or blue, it's just a decision of whether one side's going to drive you off the cliffs full speed or one side's going to press the brake a little bit.
Yeah.
So
100%.
Bitcoin is voting with your money. By taking your money out of the fiat system and putting it in Bitcoin, you are literally taking a vote against that corrupt money printing society. And you don't have to agree with politics. You don't have to be the type of person who's gung-ho about, changing the way the political system works. Like you can be if you want to be, if you want to take on that dragon. But I really think that this is my personal opinion. But I think that at the end of the day, what is going to change the political landscape of the world is more local municipalities. So we have 3,500 counties in the United States. And if, let's just say 15 to 20% of those counties decided that we want Bitcoin on our balance sheet, we want to take personal responsibility, all of a sudden, 10 years from now, they're going to have the power, the resource to tell their state, no, we're not following that. We don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. And let's say the state gets on Bitcoin and all of a sudden the federal government comes in and says, hey, like you need to do this, that, or the other thing. And they're like, no, we don't. We don't have to do that. We don't have to listen to you. What does that mean? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to get too political about it, but like, those are my thoughts.
Yeah.
Money is power. And if you can decide on what that is for your own local community and, ideally, though, I think you need to have maybe the ecosystem to sustain it locally, right? It doesn't do the municipality or the state much good to use Bitcoin and fend off Big Brother if no one in the state or the municipality is actually using it to create an economy where you can go buy stuff, right? So I think like first step is, get everybody at the farmer's market accepting BTC or Satoshis and got to go from there, right? So I guess that's the big hurdle is always the adoption, and then but it is a chicken or egg issue, right? Like if you can get some political structures that are sort of adopting it, that can also help people adopt at the ground level too.
Well, I like what you're talking about, the local economies of scale and the local circular economies. That's what's going to start the movement. When I was growing up, I always heard that like change happens from within. It starts with yourself and it moves to your community, and your community moves to the state or to the country, or, and it grows. It's like the snowball rolling downhill, picking up steam. But if you look at like the time frame, like we're humans, like we have maybe 80 to 100 years on this planet. It takes so long for things like that, for that snowball to start picking up speed and picking up traction. So instead of thinking like, oh, I'm going to change the world in my lifetime, maybe it's I'm going to be a part of the change. And by changing my lifestyle, you talked about like your friends who aren't on the Bitcoin standard yet. They're not in Bitcoin. Well, what's going to happen? This is what I personally think is going to happen. Is you start changing your life. You start living a better life, a more holistic life. You start getting healthier, mindset, body, all of these things. Your life gets better. And your friends, people who are closest to you, your family, they're going to go, what is Murphy doing? What is Derrek doing? Like, what are they doing to make their life better? They're so happy. They're so full of ease and comfort. Like, I want that. And then they're going to come to you and they're going to ask you, like, how are you doing this? And be like, bro, it's Bitcoin. It's been Bitcoin the whole time, you know?
Mhm.
And that grows into the entire municipality. Like my city of 11,000 people, 10,000 people. If I could just slowly start telling them like what Bitcoin can do for their lives, and then they start getting on that train, like, what does that mean for my local economy when everybody, or at least 5%, you know, let's just say 5% of the 10,000 people are using Bitcoin and transacting between each other? What happens when those 5% build businesses in my county? What happens when those businesses are doing not 10%, not 20%, but 250% better than all the other businesses in town? What happens then?
People are going to be asking questions.
People ask questions.
and you know, they're going to want to mimic what they see. That'll be a tough hurdle, I'm sure, for a lot of current business owners that aren't thinking that way yet.
Yeah,
but
and that's where Bitcoin mining comes into play. You know, I think that I really do think that a better way to get people into Bitcoin is through Bitcoin mining. I think that so think about this. How many businesses require heat in some part or portion of their business?
Yeah, pretty much. If they've got a physical storefront, all of them.
Yeah.
If you're in Edmonton, yes. Maybe not so much. Oregon, I think you still do need it in the winter.
Florida, you probably.
Florida maybe could get
maybe not in Florida so much, but you know, they're the outliers in this situation.
Yes.
And that's neither here nor there. But what I'm getting at is that if you compare your business that is, you know, spending all of this money on heat, and all of a sudden you compare it with something that maybe it's not making money, but it's saving you money. You're going to start cash flowing more. You have more positive cash flow. That gives you more time, more ability to think about how you're going to grow your business. And it just starts rolling downhill and it gets more and more traction. And at the end of the day, you become a Bitcoin affiliated business that is doing 100 times better than all the other businesses that aren't on that train. That's how I'm going to orange pill this county. I'm going to orange pill my county. I'm going to get these guys on Bitcoin because I'm going to be like, yo, let me hook up a part of my distributed network. Let me save you money on your electric bill. And then they're going to come to me 3 years later after they've saved thousands of dollars and been able to profit more off of it. They're going to be like, how are you doing this? And I'm going to be like, Bitcoin, baby.
Yeah. No, that can't wait until things like that take off more and become more mainstream. Like there is a company down in Calgary that does that. They'll come into your house, they'll plug in, I forget exactly, I want to say it's 1 or 2 S19s, they'll attach it into your ducts, and then, you know, you're gonna, I think that's kind of the model that they do currently. But they might be another good conversation.
Yeah, definitely. So, hey,
yes.
I just want to see if you guys have any questions for me. I know that you guys are new miners. You're starting out in the space. You know, what kind of question? I'm a new miner too, but you know, like, what do you got for me?
I guess
the one question I had was, what are you currently running?
Oh yeah, that was a question a while back. I apologize. I never got to that. So currently, right now, I have one miner up and running. I have a miner out at my dad's place. I'm running an S19K Pro, and it's just completely stock. But what's cool about it is he was running a bunch of dehumidifiers in his workshop to, you know, keep his tools taken care of and stuff like that. So what we did is we put a machine very similar to this with the AC Infinity fan on it and everything like that. We put that in his shed, and we ducted that heat into his workshop. And now his workshop stays about 68, 72 degrees, somewhere between there. And it's comfortable in there. So that's currently what I have running at the moment. But
that was the S19K Pro.
Yeah, S19K Pro.
What's the manufacturing, like approximate manufacturing date on that unit? Like, when did that come out?
I could not tell you that, honestly. I could not say. I apologize.
Yeah.
Probably
my curiosity is always like, what is the latest cutting edge stuff like, and what would be like the minimum investment you need to make in order to realistically get a Bitcoin back, right? And I guess it's probably more nuanced than that because you're typically connecting to a pool, I suppose.
Yeah, and it also matters based on your electricity rates. You know, in the United States, I think the average electricity rate's like 12 to 15 cents a kilowatt hour. This machine was just under $2,500 shipped. So I'm not exactly sure on the terahash or like the price per terahash, but you're right. It's not that feasible for a lot of people. And that's why I think that when you start integrating things like these chips that allow you to take a dismantled one and use only one hash board or two hash boards and put it in a different scenario, it makes it a lot easier. But you know, there's
another approach could be like splitting the pie. Like if there is say a $10,000 investment that needs to be made in order for you to get some viable Bitcoin mining, maybe you can get community involvement and get, whether it's a small group of buddies or maybe a local neighborhood or some series of businesses that are all kind of connected. That's another approach. I like the modular approach, like with your buddy's device there, that board, but also I guess another approach would be like you could modularize the cost by splitting it amongst your friends.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a little bit more difficult to do just because like my K Pro, it only pays out like $3 a day. You know what I mean? And in a very short amount of time, that $3 is going to go to $1.50. And it's not going to be feasible. So how
that's the dilemma of mining individually.
Yeah.
How do you compete with the big guns is the big question, right? Like,
I'll tell you how you compete with the big guns.
Yeah.
The big public mining companies, they're leveraged to the teeth, man. So they have to, first and foremost, they're not using this heat. They're not using the heat for anything. So the way that they stay profitable is by adding the most efficient, the top of the line machines. So every 2 years, they have to upgrade their entire fleet. We're not talking 50 miners. We're talking like 5,000 miners, you know? So they're, you know, the capital expenditure on that is massive. So the way that we compete is by playing around with this stuff, by literally taking one machine that is quote unquote no longer profitable because they're not using it for heat. All of a sudden, when you apply the fact that you need heat, it's like, okay, it's almost a negligible cost. It's almost like the same amount of energy being expended for the heat that you're trying to get, but now you're also producing Bitcoin.
And that's how we compete. Decentralized network after all. So you talk about how to decentralize the centralized entities. Just more people involved, running their own nodes, even if it is just to kick off some heat in the winter.
Absolutely. It doesn't need to be this thing where you're using mining as the business. I don't think mining as a business is going to be profitable. You have to pair it with another existing business that needs the heat or uses the heat for something else. And once we start seeing more, because right now the form factor on these machines is they're a shoebox that go in a warehouse. They've got these loud fans. They're industrial rated, all those things. Like the form factor isn't there for, let's say, a contractor to use one to heat to dry out the wood or the construction site, you know. But once we see more plebs building with this kind of technology, building the form factor out there, all of a sudden you see it's a lot easier to build certain things, you know, integrated heat systems or little space heaters or whatever it might be. I know a guy who rehabilitates lambs on it, like hypothermic lambs, using a Bitcoin miner. Like that's crazy. You know what I mean? So it's it's the pleb miner. You know, we talk about personal responsibility. We talk about like getting your hands dirty. It's the pleb miner who has a problem, who needs a solution to that problem, and then goes out and finds that solution using Bitcoin mining as part of the solution that is going to decentralize the network. You think about it. And I don't know the exact numbers, so I'm going to butcher it. But Zach was saying that if we could get a Bitcoin mining heater, let's just say 300 terahash in every single home, or in 1 million homes in America, that's 300 exahash spread out throughout 1 million homes in the United States. That's almost half the network.
Wow.
And only 1 million homes, if you think about it. There's a lot more than 1 million homes in America.
Yes. Yes. There's 8 million Americans who own, well, I wouldn't say own their home, but there's 8 million Americans who live in a home.
Yeah.
Let's put a Bitcoin miner in 10% of those homes, and we've decentralized the network by a pretty good portion. I don't know if you guys are familiar. You guys know, oh wait, did we talk about it? Bob Burnett?
I'm not sure.
Podcasts are bleeding together, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But
So-
with barefoot
so-
mining. Yeah.
Yes, barefoot mining. So Bob Burnett has this thesis of, you know, the elephants, the horses, and the rabbits. The elephants are they're the pubcos. They're the giant leveraged mining operations. Okay, they're the guys with 5,000 machines in their thing. Dude, if the regulators come in and decide to shut you down, they're going there first, and they're going to be able to shoot those elephants out of the field like nothing. You know what I mean? Yeah. The horses, those are the guys who have, you know, 2 to 25 megawatts. They're kind of large, but they're still a little adaptable. But then there's the rabbits, man. And the rabbits, the small ones that you might get 1 or 2 rabbits when you start trying to come in and shut things down. But what's going to happen? They're going to pick up their operations because they got 5 machines. They're going to pick up their operations, throw it in the back of a truck, and drive somewhere else.
Yeah.
Dude.
100%.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
I like that.
Yeah. Bob Burnett, he's the one that came up with that.
Yeah, I like what he's doing, and I've had the pleasure to meet him a couple times, and he's a solid dude. Yeah.
We definitely want to get him on the podcast. It's we're working on it right now, so we'll get him on here eventually. But
excellent.
Yeah. So, well, we're running a little long on time here. I always enjoy the Bitcoin conversations. So
yeah,
I've got a question. Yeah, I have one question for the both of you, and I'd like to give you each some time to answer the question. And it's completely philosophical. It has nothing to do with Bitcoin mining, unless you want to take it that direction. But Derrek, we'll start with you. What does Bitcoin represent in your life? What does it mean to you?
I think it's a means to an end, or an option where, yeah, I guess I'd call it an option, right? So it's one spoke of a strategy for getting off of the shackles, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's the only spoke. For me, it used to be more important. But then as time goes on, you realize that a lot of the innovation and the change sort of gets captured by its own velocity. So I don't know if that it's like the whole picture, right? So I think like it's a stepping stone, and there might be something after that.
Yeah. And mine will be a little shorter and simpler, I think, but basically Bitcoin to me, I guess, represents and means that life is becoming both easier and cheaper the further and further down the rabbit hole you go.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you know, I always appreciate the answers that people give. Everybody's got a different touch point. Everybody's got a different reason for being in Bitcoin. And I think that you can get some pretty awesome answers. So
yeah, it's great. I love the premise of your podcast, you know, like you bring people together in the industry, or just hobbyists or professionals alike, about one topic. It's about mining, but you know what? The mining is at the core of the whole deal, and so it can spiral into these broader philosophical discussions. And we may actually need to take on the problem or the dilemmas in mining, you know, whatever those may be, head on in a more direct way. So I think what you're doing is building momentum as well. And at some point you'll be having some more heavy hitters on, not just us plebs, but some movers and shakers that might actually be able to take us to the promised land. I don't know. Maybe that was the totally wrong way to.
No, I completely see what you're saying. I really think that there can't be enough Bitcoin content out there. The problem is, and like, I'm not here to knock down anybody else who's out there creating the space, but I think that a lot of people get lost in the noise. Like, oh, this, oh, that, like what, insert, problem with Bitcoin here kind of situation. But we need to talk about the problems, but then we also need to find solutions to those problems. And our podcast, what we're doing is we know that this is a solution, and we just have to like tell everybody else that it's a solution. We have to show everybody else that by getting their hands dirty, they can make something of themselves, of their life, of their community, and grow into the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, all right, guys. Well, hey, before we let you go, I want to tell you guys about the mining conference. I didn't do the ad read in the middle of the show, but that's okay because I'll do it right here, sort of. Okay. So the mining conference is in September. It's this fall, September 27th through the 29th in Brainerd, Minnesota. It's going to be an amazing event where we bring together speakers, talented entrepreneurs, builders in the space, all together to talk about the one thing that's most important right now, and that's Bitcoin mining. And through this event, we're going to have a bunch of tailored events or, things happening at the Bitcoin conference. But I want to give you guys tickets to the conference. So we're going to give you some free tickets to the conference. I'd love you guys to come to Brainerd if you can. If not, it's okay, because what I'd also like to do, so I'm going to give you each 2 tickets. One for yourself and one to give away as a door prize or a meetup giveaway at your Edmonton meetup. And, what I would like is for you to give it to somebody who's really excited about Bitcoin mining and really wants to dive into this world, because we're trying to tailor an event specifically for those people, those entrepreneurs with the bright light that just want to build and tinker and mess around with Bitcoin mining. Whether you're a pleb, whether you're an industrial scale miner, it doesn't matter. So we're going to give you guys those tickets, and I'll make sure that happens offline. So
yeah, we got a good connection, like Edmonton and Minnesota, like Northwest, like we're cut to the same blood a little bit here. So.
Yes, sir. It's going to be a wonderful event.
September
27th through the 29th.
Okay. So we got some
3 days.
Right on.
Nice.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. We're going to be doing a couple of cool events. Like there's a 25 megawatt mining facility out there. I'm totally blanking on Just for Crypto is the name of the company, and they're actually sponsoring our conference. So we're going to go and do a small tour of their mining facility, which will be cool to give people kind of a hands-on, in-depth experience, like a visceral feeling of what mining really can be.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a good time.
Is there going to be a miner heated hot tub?
I haven't heard anything yet, but I'm definitely trying to get some people over here doing some cool things like that. So
it may be worthwhile to touch base with the folks over at Mint Green. They're based out of Vancouver.
Dude, let's do it after the show. Let's get in touch with them. We want all the builders, everybody who's building something in Bitcoin mining. Let's bring them to this event, because this is the event for them.
Okay.
I really truly feel like this event, going into the future, is going to shape the future of Bitcoin mining and the world, really, if we can just start getting things, tailored and fixed and figured out. It's gonna. Basically, where I'm going at with this is, like, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know where your skill set could be applied. And so when you come to an event like the Bitcoin mining conference, which is just Bitcoin mining, nothing else. We're not talking about shit coins. We're not talking about anything along those lines. We're talking about Bitcoin mining and the technology that it is. You have no idea what spark that can ignite inside of you and build a fire that just burns with a passionate fury that takes you into the future.
So brilliant.
Hell yeah. Hey guys, take a minute to, shill anything that you guys have going for you. Tell the plebs where they can find you and how they can reach out.
Sure. Yeah. So myself with Studio BTC, We are a Bitcoin trading cards company, doing media production for different Bitcoin companies. One of the fun things that I get to do is go around to conferences and live stream them. So
and get paid to do it, right?
And get paid to do
so
it.
You're available.
I'm
and
paid.
maybe you can run this show here.
Because those dates, that is 1 weekend after Unconfiscatable, which is or 2 weeks after Unconfiscatable. So
nice.
But yeah, that's where to find me. It's under that on Twitter. You can go studio-btc.com, and that'll link to everywhere to find us.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, full stack coding. So if you need Bitcoin coding, or if you just need like generic custom software coding, and kind of like a full stack front end and back end, as well as use UI and user experience stuff, Codejam. That's what I do. So I'll be sure to get you a link there, Trevor. And yeah, thanks again for having us. This was lots of fun.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's always fun talking to people in the Bitcoin space, you know, just coming from different worlds. I'll make sure that all of those links, everything to get to you guys will be in the show notes. And guys, this was the Build a Mind podcast. If you guys liked it, please comment, like, subscribe, share it out, you know, share the Bitcoin signal. And if you follow us on Fountain, I'll make sure that you get some boosts or some sats sent back to you. And with that, I want to thank you guys again for being here, and we will see you guys next time.
All right. Cheers.
Please note, the Build a Mind podcast provides information for general educational purposes only. This information should not be construed as legal, financial, or investment advice. We do not guarantee the accuracy or completeness of any information presented, and we encourage you to consult with a professional advisor, legal advisor, and/or financial advisor before making any financial decisions. The Build a Mind podcast and its affiliates are not responsible for any losses incurred as a result of using the information provided.